Jackson Radio Show.
Just speaking on, for the New York Times, our subscriptions have skyrocketed since, they call it the Trump bump. The Trump bump.
This wasn't the first time we heard of the so-called Trump bump. Times audience strategy editor Nick Dudick made the exact same point.
Honestly, Trump has driven us more business than anybody else. Anytime he says failing, we get a boost in subscribers.
Really?
Yep, so it kind of works both ways.
The bump is real, abundantly clear by the Times' second quarter financials. Total revenues are up 9% from the same period last year, including a 63% increase in digital subscriptions.
The Times, the Guardian, the BBC, not the Guardian, the BBC, the Washington Post, people who have paywalls up. The main objective is to grab subscribers. Yeah. You do that any way that you can.
Welcome back, everybody. Kevin Jackson here. The Trump bump. The reason why I wanted to bring that up and talk about that is very simple. It sounds like what they're saying is, the negative press that Trump, with their negative reporting or whatever, is helping the paper and all that. That's not what the Trump bump is. The Trump bump is the fact that Donald Trump is a news manufacturer. He creates the news. And at the very end, you kind of get a feel for why I wanted to bring this up, this particular subject. It isn't that their negativity about Trump is helping them. It's the fact that, number one, they still need Trump in order to get that bump that they got. Barack Obama couldn't give them an Obama bump, but they got a Trump bump. But the real thing is what she said at the end, which is, we will do whatever it takes to acquire subscriptions. There are people that want you to pay for subscriptions. And they're saying, we need to figure out a way to get you to give us your information, and then they bombard you. I don't know if you've seen this. If you go to a New York Times and you read an article, it'll give you a limit. You only have 3 more articles to read this month for free. And then it'll start to send you emails. I don't know whether it's using a scraper or whatever, but it'll start sending you emails that say, hey, get a New York Times subscription for $5. And if you're a news source and you're using the New York Times quite a bit, you might pay the $5 a month or whatever. So they need those subscriptions. Part of the reason is, even though their numbers are up, it's 9.2%. He said 9% in the deal, but it's 9.2%. The digital subscriptions is what they need. They don't want to print it anymore. It costs too much money. Even with it being 9.2% up, there's still not there's a danger that they could go away. If they don't get the dollars, they could go away. People don't look at the New York Times paper the way they did a decade or two ago. It was the de facto paper. It still is. You can go anywhere practically in the world and you don't get the New York Times. There's hardly a paper, LA Times doesn't do that. Chicago Tribune. It's New York Times. So it's an international paper. And Barack Obama couldn't save it. It was going to take like what Jeff Bezos did with the Washington Post, where he bought it and said, I'll put as much money as it needs to run. You guys don't worry about money. Just go find me dirt on Trump. And that's what they try to do. So it's helping everybody that Donald Trump's the president and he's getting things out there. But the bigger thing is this. They want the subscription. They need the digital data. This is the same premise that Facebook runs on, folks. Same premise that Twitter, that Google, all these guys want the data. They want to know what you're searching on, why you're searching on it. And then instead of, it used to be this, they would say, wow, Kevin, you seem to have a lot of information or a lot of, propensity to go look for things that are conservative. Good stories about conservatives, whatever. So they profile you. And it used to be that they would say, well, look, you tend to be very conservative. I'm going to go find things that are conservative and put them in your wheelhouse. Now, I don't mind, I search for everything. I don't mind them saying, you appear to be conservative. But every now and then, we're going to put a little salt with your sugar, throw you a leftist piece of news. Maybe that'll help you to see the other side or spur thought. I don't mind that. But they don't do that. Now, they take your algorithm and they say, or your information, they use their search algorithm to say, he's a hardcore conservative. I'm going to give him things to think about. I'm going to send him tons of global warming. I'm going to send him tons of Harvey Weinstein's not nearly as bad of a guy as you may think he is. I'm going to send you all these types of things that counter what he may be thinking. And hopefully it'll change his mind. Now, do you think that these guys are doing that same thing with leftists? You think that they're going, you know what, these leftists, they're still trying to, figure out about Harvey Weinstein, and this is just wrong, and we need to send them something that says this is terrible. And so they bombard them with terrible news about Harvey, or, that this is bad and we shouldn't let it happen and all that. Nope. They're using these algorithms to change our hearts and minds, or try to. And they're doing nothing for them against themselves. Nothing. So the Trump bump is real. Now the question is, we have to figure out how the Trump bump can negatively impact them. And this is what I would be doing as a business strategist. I'd say, okay, great, you're getting a bump on the president. And for the record, that's good. I want business to be good for everybody. Trump, he should raise the ocean for all people. Now the question is, how do we make you eat this? So that video where they're talking about, we have this thing called the Trump bump. Well, my question is, so that goes to say you didn't have an Obama bump. And in fact, my question would be, what was your circulation? What were you doing prior to Obama? How well was biz? As we would say in the vernacular, how you living, bro? How were you living when Barack Obama was at the helm? And people were in triage. The Washington Post was in danger of going out of business. Many of these papers, small town papers, they're going out of business because people don't want to read print, number one. And number two, they don't want to read lies. So how's that going? And if we had a number, a baseline that we could follow on this, wouldn't it be good to be able to report that baseline and say, aha, you lost 12%, or whatever, 6% during the time of Obama, and you maybe righted the ship a bit, but then along comes Donald Trump, the guy you say is going to ruin things for everybody, and suddenly you get a 9.2% bump that you've given a name to, the Trump bump. Why are we not marketing the Trump bump and explaining to the left that Donald Trump got these people a bump when Obama couldn't? They ain't naming anything after Barry. You get what I'm saying, folks? This is where I come back to strategies. These people know this. The people at the head of the New York Times and all these other places, they know it. I'd love to look at their financials. Don't allow them to say, well, we've turned it around. Look at what we've done. You didn't do anything. They named it. I didn't name it. They named it the Trump bump for a reason. They know where it originates. How about you let other businesses experience that bump?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.